that we're holding this hearing today on FEMA's implementation of the Disaster Recovery Reform Act and the readiness of emergency management workforce as we head into yet another hurricane and wildfire season. The Disaster Recovery Reform Act, I'll have to start saying DRRA, it's going to take too long, enjoyed significant bipartisan, bicameral support, something that this committee strives toward as much as possible. Disasters certainly don't care about your political perspective, whether you live on a coast, on the plains, or whether you believe in climate change or not. They happen regardless of our differences, and the federal government has an obligation to effectively both deal with post-disaster relief and pre-disaster mitigation. The DRRA is intended to give us more resilient communities and help mitigate future disasters. For every dollar invested in mitigation, we know that we'll save $4 in future costs post-disaster. We had several bipartisan conversations with FEMA confirming the agency understands that the intent of this new stream of pre-disaster funding is mandatory, and it will provide consistency to a program with a proven record of saving taxpayers' money. As I've noted many times before, it is nonsensical that the federal government pays to rebuild communities after disaster back to inadequate standards, only to have those facilities destroyed in another disaster, with the federal government once again coming in and building back to the original standard as opposed to a more resilient and more robust standard. It is time to get smarter about how we respond and how we rebuild after disasters. The other part is, there was a odd, the FEMA has, we have a lot of acronyms, something called the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. States get that money when a disaster is declared, but prior to passage of DRRA, they were not provided when a state received a Fire Management Assistance Grant, FMAG, to respond to wildfires on federal lands. And coming from a part of the country takes place, there's potential for mudslides. We need to get in and mitigate and replant and do other things. By fixing that problem, states will now be able to restore landscapes, vegetation destroyed by wildfires, make the land less susceptible to future mudslides, floods. It also clarifies that wildfire-related mitigation activities are eligible under both PDM, yet another acronym, and HMGP programs. Together, these provisions will help prevent wildfires-related disasters. It also clarified that earthquake-related activities are eligible for mitigation assistance. The West Coast is potentially, we have two major faults on the West Coast, one down in California and the Cascadia subduction zone in Northern California, up across Oregon and Washington. Beginnings of an early warning system, which again could save lives and mitigate concerns. In Japan, when there's a disaster, everything shuts down. So the trains don't derail, elevators stop on floors, the doors open so people aren't trapped. They have done a lot. Chairman Denham and I visited after their last major tsunami and earthquake, and I brought back manuals that they provided to their people and things that they had done, and it's very instructive of the things we haven't done and we need to do to prepare for this coming disaster. So with that, Madam Chair, I yield back to balance my time.
Thank you, Mr.